Hello, questions. Mystery Writer here, and today I am doing something a little different with my normal recording. My voice is a little sore. Well, my throat, I should say, is a little sore, so I'm not going to go ahead and do all the fun voices this time. But I am going to go ahead and read a podfic. I am reading Another Face in the Crowd by Alone in the Rain. This fic does appear to be a part of a series, but I did click on the series just to see if anything is necessary or anything in order to understand what's happening, and as far as I could tell, nothing was necessary to be read previously in order to understand part 3 of this series. It only looks like a series of one-shots. Now, this will be a blind reading of this fic, as I haven't read it yet. So I'm sorry for any mistakes I make, and if I have to reread any lines in order to correct it, as I read the summary of this and I knew it just, I think you'll see what I'm talking about. Anyways, I hope you all enjoy. Summary. Deku's not as cool as All Might though, Midoriya said. All Might is the best of the best. There's no competition. Deku is cool too, Iki said defensively. Just like that, all traces of tears were gone as he recognized just who was in front of him. A fellow fanboy. Or, Midoriya has a bad habit of interacting with hero fans without letting them know he's Deku, the current #1 hero. Notes from the author. I found this in my drafts folder and edited and extended it. It's an old scene from History Has Its Eyes on You, originally deleted because it didn't fit with the timeline of that fic. This fic works as a standalone, so you don't need to read anything else that comes before this. And there is a Spanish translation available by N. Boer. I'm probably butchering the way that's said. I am really sorry. And there are more notes from the author at the end and other works inspired by this one, so I'm excited to read. The sports festival felt different at this angle, like this was Midoriya's first time seeing the festivities. In a way, it was. As a student, he had used side entrances and private corridors during the sports festival. He saw the inside of the arena, its secluded corners and rooms, where so many of his relationships were formed and strengthened, rather than the crowds, the public seating area, and the stalls set up over campus. And before that, he had watched the live broadcast from his couch, holding tightly to his hero journal. Yue had looked different on TV, more untouchable, like someplace out of a dream. Attending the sports festival as an observer was strange. He had graduated years ago, but he still expected to be ushered through the students-only doors, to see Araka in her sports uniform flagging him down, to hear President Mike announcing the indomitable Midoriya Izuku one last time over the speakers. That was in the past, though. His excitement was all for the kids. He had a fresh journal in his bag, ready to take notes during the activities later, and now he finally had the chance to check out all the stalls. Midoriya fidgeted with his mask. It was a plastic Batman mask that obscured the top half of his face. Araka had bought it for him a year ago, hoping he would wear it when he wanted to duck out during conventions, and browse the con floor, rather than stride through the crowds barefaced like he had always done. He would have gone without it today, but Todoroki had pressed it into his hands that morning and insisted. Midoriya squeezed through the crowds. There was so much to see. Stalls selling merchandise and food, carnival games and other pro heroes sprinkled through the crowds. Most heroes were in costume, unlike Midoriya, who wanted everyone's attention to be firmly on Bakugo's class. Maybe he should seek the other pros out, or go find them in the VIP cafeterias reserved for high-profile attendees. Midoriya loved talking to the other heroes, especially those he didn't get to regularly work with. But the freshmen were always up first, and he couldn't accidentally miss seeing Bakugo's class. Midoriya turned the problem over in his head, checking his watch compulsively, and almost mowed down a father and son turning the corner. He stopped abruptly, and people behind him rammed into him, the group behind them following suit, and then there were strangers knocking into strangers, belongings and limbs flying everywhere. Midoriya threw himself to one side so someone didn't fall and brain themselves on him. His hoodie might have hidden it, but he was built like a brick wall. He managed to avoid most of the damage, but a nearby pair didn't. A father had pulled his son into the gap between stalls and bent over, wiping ice cream stains off his son's chest with a napkin. The kid's face was screwed up like he was trying not to cry. His ice cream laid in the middle of the walkway, rapidly melting into sludge. Midoriya's legs moved on their own. "Excuse me." The father looked up. Midoriya smiled sheepishly. "That was my fault. I wasn't watching where I was going. Sorry. Can I buy you another ice cream?" "It's all right," said the father. He reminded Midoriya strikingly of his own mother. The messy curls, the dark circles under his eyes, the polite smile, even the narrow-shouldered kid sucking in great gulps of air and dressed in a sticky All Might hoodie. It was the Midoriya family 15 years ago. "Please," Midoriya said. "The sports festival is supposed to be an exciting day out, and I've ruined it. Let me try and make it a bit better." The father must have seen something in Midoriya's face, something he trusted, because he dropped the napkins and stood. "I'm Tanaka." "I'm Takanaka," he said, "and this is Iki." He's more upset about his hoodie than his ice cream, I think. I had that exact hoodie when I was younger. If it got covered in ice cream, I'd be upset too. Iki stopped sniffing long enough to glower up at Midoriya. "You ruined it." "Iki," Takanaka scolded. "You have your Deku hoodie in your bag. You can change into that, and we'll wash the All Might one tonight." "Deku's not as cool as All Might, though," Midoriya said, ignoring Takanaka's long-suffering sigh at this stranger encouraging his son's behavior. "All Might is the best of the best. There's no competition." "Deku is cool too," Iki said defensively. Just like that, all traces of tears were gone as he recognized just who was in front of him. A fellow fanboy. "I mean, All Might is kind of old, and..." Midoriya gasped. "He's an icon! He's timeless!" Iki huffed and changed tactics. "Last week, Deku held a building on his shoulders for almost half an hour while his sidekicks evacuated everyone. Have you seen the footage of All Might rescuing over 100 people in a few minutes?" "Of course, but..." Boys, Takanaka said, hands held in front of him. "They're both great. And Iki, you shouldn't start fights with strangers, especially when they've offered to buy you ice cream." Before Midoriya could apologize for starting an argument with a preteen, Iki rolled his eyes. "We're not fighting, Dad. He's a hero fan like me. We're friends now." Midoriya liked this kid immediately. He reminded Midoriya of himself in a way, but he had certainly never snapped back this fast after a near panic attack. And Midoriya had also never reached out and made a friend that didn't hurt him until he started high school. "I'm a big hero fan," Midoriya agreed. "The biggest. I'm the biggest hero fan," Iki said. "Come on, let's get ice cream. You can tell me about All Might, and I can tell you about Deku." Iki strode into the crowd, and his dad scrambled after him. Midoriya looked at his watch. He had enough time for an ice cream break and a serious hero nerd out. Iki led them to a stall that sold hero-themed desserts. Iki stubbornly ordered the Deku Delight. Midoriya countered by ordering the All Might Mania. Takanaka looked on, completely lost. "I'm not a fan like Iki," he admitted. I like pancakes?" Midoriya ordered the Pinky Pancake Pyramid for him, and Iki nodded approvingly. "Pinky is cool too. Good choice." Takanaka's helpless expression reminded him again of his mother, not understanding her son's hero obsession, but supporting him every step of the way. "They're all very cool," Midoriya said, gesturing at the board, "just not as cool as All Might." "No!" Iki led them towards a shaded area beneath an outcropping of trees and started in on a lecture about the level of coolness between heroes and the differences between Deku and All Might. Takanaka trailed after them, Midoriya guessed he was allowing this strange man to spend time with his son because he had bought them apology desserts and was indulging his son's passion for heroics. Midoriya pulled out his phone and sent off a text to Araka, letting her know where he was. Wen pocketed it and looked back up. Iki was staring at him, more serious than any preteen had the right to look. All Might is more Golden Age, Iki began, shoving his spoon into the mint ice cream. He's classic, but Deku is totally different. He's #1 for starters. Midoriya pointed a yellow wafer at Iki. All Might was #1 for decades. Decades! They finished their ice cream as they talked. Takanaka picked at his pancakes and watched on, baffled as they argued back and forth. Midoriya was far too enthusiastic, but it had been so long since he has been able to talk with other fans like this, especially about the best hero that had ever lived, All Might. Ahoy! Midoriya cut himself off and looked up. Araka waved, crossing the grass towards them. I knew it was you! I recognized those curls anywhere! Sero trailed after Araka. Kaminari was further back, crouched to take a photo with a fan. None of them were wearing their hero costumes, and they hadn't taken measures to blend in. Kaminari's recognizable, eccentric hairstyle had already attracted a flock of kids. Midoriya risked a glance at Iki. His eyes looked like they were going to fall out of his head. Gravity, he whispered to himself. Cellophane. Charge bolt. Takanaka looked from Iki to Midoriya. Are they heroes? Dad! Oh my god! Yeah, Midoriya said, and then almost sheepishly, he waved back at Araka. Hey guys. You're going to miss the first years if you're not careful, Sero said. Everyone else is already at the stadium. Have you seen Kachan yet? Midoriya asked. How's he holding up? Is he worried? Araka laughed. He pretends not to care. But we all know he's secretly stressed out, hoping his students will do well. He's just like Aizawa. Iki was staring at Midoriya now. You said Kachan. Midoriya said. Deku is the only person that calls detonation Kachan. Not even Red Riot calls him that. Midoriya said again. Iki's mouth opened and closed, like he couldn't remember how to form words. Takanaka was still smiling, oblivious. Uraraka and Sero looked pained. He's done it again, hasn't he? Uraraka said to Sero. Sero rubbed his temple. Please, Midoriya, we can't keep doing this. Kaminari waved goodbye to the last of his fans and bounded over. What has Midoriya done now? Hung out with hero fans without being aware of the fact that he's #1, Sero said. Kaminari looked from Iki's stricken expression to Uraraka, trying to look stern while also trying not to laugh, to Midoriya himself, fidgeting under their stares, still wearing the Batman mask. Dude, Kaminari said. Again? Midoriya reached up and carefully took off the mask. Iki made a small sound in the back of his throat, like someone had stepped on him. His eyes grew wet. I'm sorry, Midoriya hurried to say. I wasn't trying to be mean, He forgets sometimes, Sero said. He's still not used to being famous, Kaminari agreed and made a face. It had been years since they had first made national headlines, and they had stayed in the national headlines ever since. Sero groped for the words. Uraraka shrugged. Deku is Deku. I'm sorry, Midoriya said. But instead of getting angry or bursting into tears, Iki leapt up and said, a touch hysterical, I win! Midoriya blinked at him. What? Deku bought me Deku-themed ice cream. You have to admit that you're the superior hero now. What? No, that doesn't make sense. It makes sense. You can't say that you're the best hero yourself, so you automatically have to root for someone else. And that means your argument is disqualified. It's not. My prize will be autographs and selfies, Iki declared, nodding to himself. There was a gleam in his eyes that wasn't there before, and he was smiling so hard his cheeks must have hurt. But otherwise, he looked smug, rather than on the brink of an emotional breakdown. Another way he and Iki differed, Midoriya supposed. It had taken him months to stop shaking whenever he talked with All Might. I would have given you those anyway, Midoriya said, taking the fabric marker Kaminari handed him. After signing Iki's Deku hoodie and hat and phone case, and after a bit of nudging his All Might hoodie too, and taking a bunch of photos together, Sero tapped him on the shoulder and said, "We really have to go." Iki's shoulders slumped. "Right, I understand." "Why don't you come with us?" Midoriya said. Iki's head snapped back up. "What? Really?" "Really. I wanted to take notes on all the students, quirks, and fighting styles anyways. And something tells me that you'll be able to help with that." He glanced at Takanaka, who had, aside from a mumbled, "I don't understand heroes at all," when Midoriya had revealed himself, been quiet until then, as long as that's okay. Takanaka took one look at Iki's blissed out expression and gave in. "As long as it's no bother." Uraraka pumped a fist in the air. "The more the merrier!" They threw away their napkins, soggy with melted ice cream, and hurried towards the stadium. In the distance, Present Mike was revving up the crowds. Soon, the first years would be making their way from the private rooms to the arena, and step out into the sun for the first time. He had thought that watching the kids in the sports festival would make him feel old, but it didn't. Midoriya watched the billboard-sized screens replay highlights from last year's festival. He saw the school kids weaving through the stalls, clutching newly bought merch that bore his friends' faces. He looked down, saw Iki staring up at him, and, without thinking about it, scrubbed his hand through Iki's hair, the same way All Might would do to him when he was younger, and still did on occasion, and watched with quiet fascination as the kid's face lit up beneath his hand. He didn't feel old, he realized. He felt excited to watch the next generation grow. Oh, that's such a good fic. Now, here's the author's endnotes. I like to think Iki goes on to attend UA himself, and when he meets Midoriya again, he brings up the time he bought them ice cream and then trash-talked himself, while the other students are in the background like, what? I officially put my other two MHA fics into a series, because they all take place in the same verse, even if all of them can be read as standalones. I have at least one more one-shot planned for this verse, probably more in the future. I also have a tag for this verse on my Tumblr, and another tag for Fanboy Hero Deku. Thanks for reading. This is such a good fic! Oh my gosh, I absolutely love it. And I didn't know that it's been podfic. When I looked it up on YouTube, I couldn't find it anywhere. So, these people who did the podfic are amazing. I'll have to listen to them myself. But because I couldn't find it on YouTube, I am going to go ahead and release it so that people can still find it. As currently, I'm only releasing my podfics on YouTube anyways. And without access to it, I kind of don't know if people would even find this podfic if it wasn't posted somewhere else. So yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed that fic. I know I absolutely did. And it was so good. I can't wait to read more parts of the series. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. I will see all you question marks in the next podfic. Bye.